Welcome to the Arkansas Soybean Promotion Board's Field to Film podcast. Today we're talking about agriculture careers, and we are here with Michelle Bufkin Horton, the Executive Vice President of the Arkansas Cattlemen's Association. How are you doing today, Michelle?
I am great. Excited to be here. Excited to be able to share a little bit about the cattlemen's and my career that led here.
So, Michelle, before we really get into your career, tell us, who you are and how you got to your position today.
Yeah, I have an agricultural communications degree, so two of them technically, and so very tied into the agriculture industry, but I actually did not grow up on a farm. I grew up next to a very large cattle farm and fell in love with the cattle industry in college, and so I was able to convince my father, very lovingly, to get into the cattle industry, and that was where, I went to school thinking I was going to be a vet as a whole thing, but I really knew and fell in love very early on in my college career days if this is where I wanted to be. I'm not a native Arkansan, but I like to jokingly tell people that I got here as quickly as I could. And so I met Mary in Arkansas, and so we're here to stay for sure.
So you said you wanted to be a vet initially. What made you transition away from that?
Yeah, so my answer is going to be very similar to a lot of people. I feel like that think they want to go to vet school. One, I didn't know there was another option. I thought if I wanted to work with animals, if I wanted to be involved in the ag industry, that I had to be a veterinarian. Mm-hmm. But the second piece of it was really the chemistry side. Mm-hmm. I went to a chemistry class every single day at Auburn, and I was absolutely miserable. I hated it. I was like, why would I do this to myself for 8 years? And so that same professor that told me you didn't have to be a vet to work with animals was like, you like talking to people, you're good at sharing stories, you like agriculture, you should do agriculture communications. I asked him, I was like, is that a real job? Turns out it is. So here we are, many years later, within the ag communications realm.
So you got your bachelor degree, and then you also have a master's, correct?
Yes, correct. And so I was able to get my bachelor's degree in agricultural communications. Graduated on time, even though I went in animal sciences pre-vet. So still proud of it, even though we changed majors partway through. And then after I graduated, honestly, I couldn't quite find a job. I didn't know exactly where I felt, and I enjoyed learning, and so I was like, well, I'll just go get my master's degree, and a job fell in my lap, and so I ended up doing my master's, but getting it online.
And so let's talk about, your first job outside of college for a little bit. What was that like, and how did that help prepare you to get to where you are today?
Yep. Yeah, so my first job right out of college was actually being the recruiter for the College of Agriculture there at Auburn University. So it's my home college. I had just graduated. Was a very interesting transition, but I was able to go out and tell people all across the state of Alabama what agriculture meant and what studying agriculture meant, and telling them what I had learned is that it's not just being a veterinarian. It's not just what they kind of think. And so that was beneficial, along with just meeting people across the industry within that cattle industry. And that was kind of what led me now to my job, was that I absolutely loved what I was doing, but I felt adjacent to agriculture instead of in agriculture.
That's a perfect segue into talking about what you do here and how you're in the heart of agriculture every single day. Can you tell us about your role here?
Yeah, so I currently serve as the Executive Vice President for the Cattlemen's Association. So we're a grassroots membership-ran organization. Still very much an office job, but I'm able to directly interact with producers every single day. A big portion of what I do is going to be on the administrative side, obviously, so looking at budgets, looking at managing employees, managing events, planning for that, but another big piece of it is the legislation, and so it's the lobbying part, and so that's the part that honestly I was a little nervous about. I hadn't done that before. That had not really been my forte, but it's a part that I've absolutely fallen in love with. And so I get to get out of the office and go to the Capitol, get to go to DC, but I also get to go to producers and share and say, hey, this is the legislation that's coming up. What do you think? How do you think that this would affect you? Are you willing to share with me how and to share with the elected officials how this would affect you?
What is the mission of Arkansas Cattlemen's Association?
We are focused on 4 pillars: legislation, education, advocacy, and development. So we want to make sure that we're helping write policy or influence policy that is beneficial for the cattle producer, or at the very least, not detrimental for cattle producers. We work on educational opportunities, so we have convention, we have cattlemen's colleges there, we host webinars, anything that we can do to help producers better their operation. And then we advocate for the producer's way of life. We know that agriculture is Arkansas's #1 industry, but agriculture has a lot of different facets.
Right.
And so making sure that cattle producers are heard. And then we work on development, that next generation of cattle producers. How are we going to grow that? We know the average age of cattle producers in Arkansas is ever increasing. And so how do we make sure that we have the support for 4-H, for FFA, for young producers? And so we do that through obviously a lot of the programs that already exist with 4-H, FFA, junior cattlemen's, but also working with our own young cattlemen's program. And so having a training program for these producers to learn about the cattlemen's, to learn about each other, and learn about the industry.
When you transitioned into this job, what was one thing that you weren't expecting to be a part of it?
So I spent almost 5 years, about 4.5 years, as the membership and communications director here at the Cattlemen's. So I knew the people, I understood the membership, and I was connected with them. But what surprised me was the different connections I get to have with members now. I was like, oh, well, I know these people. I've worked with them for 4.5 years. I've interacted with the memberships, but now I get to interact with the membership in a very different capacity. I had seen it from afar, the love, the respect, the care they have for this organization, but seeing it close up in the day-to-day has been really, really inspiring.
What would you say are some of the key characteristics that make you a good fit for this role?
For me, a big piece of it is the fact that I'm willing to know what I don't know. One of my favorite sayings is like, you don't know what you don't know. And so willing to admit that, hey, I'm new to lobbying, I'm new here, what can I do to learn about this, or to ask questions? Another piece of it is I look at things very differently. I'm a very analytical, data-driven person based on, I give the credit to getting my master's, and so taking statistics, as much as I hated that class, it really did, I think, help prepare me for looking at budgets, looking at numbers, and looking at data that maybe we haven't necessarily looked at before. And so all very interesting for me to be able to fit that data-driven analytical side into the fact that this is obviously still just very much a person-based job.
So if a student were looking for a job, they saw your job and they thought, wow, you know, Michelle, she's living the dream.
Yeah.
What advice would you give them?
Yeah, so one, this is my dream job. To think that I would have this job at this point in my career, if you had told me that, I would never have believed it. And so very excited for it. And so I think one of the big things that I always tell people when I talk to young students is that the age-old saying of like, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And so networking, taking that ability, but also don't burn bridges. Like, if you leave a company, that doesn't have to mean forever. It just means it wasn't the correct fit for you right at that time. And so when I left Cattleman's, I left after 4.5 years. I'd spent a lot of my time here. My husband wanted to move up to Northwest Arkansas, and we spent a year and a half up there before I came back to Cattleman's. And so making sure that you're working on those relationships, whether that's through networking, whether that's where you are now, but also just don't ever tell yourself that you can't do something. Don't ever say, hey, I don't know that I can. I found a lot of times young women especially don't apply for jobs if they feel like they're only like 80% qualified for it. If I hadn't applied for this job, I obviously wouldn't be here. But did I fit 100% of the qualifications? No, I had never done lobbying before. I'd never done legislative work before.
But you were able to learn those skills.
Yes.
Instead of just staying where you were able to take that and learn from it.
Correct. Yes. Yeah, and being willing to learn and ask questions, I think, is the biggest piece. Even if you're not, you're rarely going to be 100% qualified for a job that you have, and if you are, like, that might not be the job for you. Because what can you learn there?
Right.
That's one of my favorite things is the challenges. I love being able to find a new challenge, and so being able to learn from anyone that you surround yourself with. It doesn't have to be people above you. It can be people on your team or people that work for you or your member or whoever. Just being willing to learn from them is the key to being successful.
What would you say is your why?
Yeah, so my why for this job is being able to fight for and protect and work with producers. Cattle producers are salt of the earth people. My members are outstanding, wonderful humans. They accepted me. I mean, I'm just a girl from Alabama, and they accepted me with open arms, didn't ask questions, willing to take me in the family. And so being able to fight for and represent them all across the state is really, really what I enjoy.
If a producer were to ask you, why should I become a member of the Arkansas Cattlemen's Association, what would you tell them?
I think the legislative piece is always going to be a very big why of why you should join, and then along with the ability to join and network and meet other producers all across the state. So each county has their own cattlemen's associations represented, and so they're able to not only have a voice here at the state level, but they're able to share and discuss issues that are happening at their local level as well.
And you also had mentioned that you have an internship program as well. Can you tell us a little bit about that, and if a student wanted to apply?
Yep, so we have two different internship programs. We have a summer internship, exactly what it sounds like. It's a true summer. It's here in Little Rock, 8 to 5 every day. The thing I like the best about our internship is that it's not a one-size-fits-all. We get to be very tailor-fit to the students that apply. And so we've had an ag business student that came in recently and ran a lot of ROI studies on our magazine and on some of our ad availability and things like that. And so she was able to really hone in on her skills and learn that. And then our intern this summer has been an ag communications student, and she has completely redesigned our website. And so we'll be launching that here in a couple of weeks.
That's so exciting.
And so that's a big deal for a student to be able to redesign an entire website. And so it's really, really exciting, really looking forward to seeing that. It is wonderful, beautiful work, and so very excited to share that. But it's not necessarily something you get at what I would think of as a traditional internship. We give you a lot of autonomy and give you a lot of leeway there to figure out what you want to work on. And so that opens up in March, April of every year on our website, on our social media. All we're looking for is, we obviously do give preference to students in agriculture, and we give preference to students from Arkansas, but those are going to school in Arkansas, and so those are two really our big requirements there. And then we have a convention internship every summer. We're able to utilize those interns and help them get the experience of on hands at an event management.
Is there anything else about Cattlemen's or your position that you think, producers or even upcoming professionals who are looking for a career in agriculture need to know?
Yeah, I think on the producer side, I think a big piece is no matter what your size of operation, whether you have 1 cow, whether you have 1,000 cows, it doesn't matter. Cattlemen's is here to represent you, and you only get a voice at the table if you join and sit at the table. And so that's a big piece of it is to be involved, to share your voice. And then same thing for young students going through college looking for careers is looking for opportunities to network, looking for opportunities to share your story and stepping out of your comfort zone. If you're not willing to do that, it's a lot more difficult to make it far in this industry because, again, it's a lot of who you know and being in the right spot at the right time.
A lot of networking.
Yes. Yeah, a lot of conversations.
Networking, relationship building, that's two of the biggest themes I've heard you say throughout our conversation.
Yeah. My advice to students is always, if you are going to network, obviously do, if you get a business card, take the business card and flip it over, and on the back, write down where you met that person and write down something you talked about. So that way when you email them later, so if you meet me at convention, and so you write down 2025 convention, and you can write down something. But that way you can email me and say, hey, Michelle, we met at Cattleman's Convention 2025. We had this brief of a conversation. That way I can place it, or that person can place it. They're meeting a lot of people. And so that's an easy way to make yourself stand out, is being able to remind them, like, hey, this is where we met. So that's one of the biggest pieces.
A good point.
Yeah, it's my tangible piece of advice.
Michelle, I've had so much fun talking with you today. Thank you so much for being on the podcast with us.
Perfect. Happy to do it.